Hey there, welcome to Tangerine. My name is Theodora. I'm going to be speaking with Alessia, who is an absolute star. She's been fantastic to work with, and I absolutely loved talking to her. We're going to be talking about the PIP process, which is a genuine nightmare. We're going to be talking about accessibility and also the stigma that we generally face, both being autistic and dyspraxic. And I will also be discussing a little bit about wheelchair accessibility as a wheelchair user. Here we go. Personal independence payments. You got rejected once, and it was effectively a load of for the reason that they rejected you. What was the reason that they suggested was the rejection, and what happened after that?
Okay, so I had an assessment. First of all, apparently the assessor got a bit mad at me because she called me 1 hour before my assessment, and I said, "Sorry, but you said that the assessment is 4:30. I am busy at 3:30. I have my routine that I built up for this morning and this afternoon. Please can you call me at 4:30 like the scheduled time?" And she said okay, and then when she called me at 4:30, she was like, "Oh, okay, let's," and she rushed through it. And when I was trying to say something, she said, "No, no, it's irrelevant." So when I was trying to say that I were ear defenders, she was saying, "No, no, don't say it." And I said, and that, "Oh, we need to," and she like was really controlling what I say by asking very specific questions and not wanting that I say my own thing. She like always interrupted.
Yep.
And it was very humiliating because and then in her report she made up excuses, so I cannot go to the shower in my own, and the excuse that she put is that I'm lazy. It's not that. She put it's because my x-ray scans show that I have no bone malfunction. First, the wording she put it is in a rubbish way, and it's humiliating.
Yeah.
I cried after the report.
As someone who has also been through PIP, I completely understand it. It's one of those things where you go into the assessment, and I just want to point out before I lose this train of thought, an assessor calling you earlier than they're supposed to is a red flag in itself. It suggests that they've gotten through their workload too quickly. They're rushing through it, which usually means that they're the type of person to try and rush through them quicker to get more money out of it. And rushing through it as a whole is terrible, but they don't like you being honest on the assessment when it's like a video or a phone call, because it's recorded, and therefore if they get caught out in the lie or there's information that we provide that they then completely discount in their report, they know that they can get done for it, which is why they like to cut us off a lot.
Yeah.
And I had exactly the same thing, where in my report, it came back, it said that I can't have anxiety because I leave the house regularly to meet friends. I'd like to point out that I have not left my house in in just over a month now. Before that it was 2 months, and before that it was 7. I have effectively left my house since February. I've left my house maybe 4 times. And that's not including hospital visits, because hospital visits are a different situation. I get dragged to my hospital visits via hospital transport and my mum. I have no choice in the matter. It's a case of I either go or I get verbal abuse. And to be fair, verbal abuse for good reason, but verbal abuse nonetheless. And they kind of change it as if to say, like, they independently go. So it's like, no, I don't. I literally told you that I had to get dragged there by my mum. I have to get hospital transport because I can't use public transport because of my anxiety and my depression and my stimming. And also my mobility, considering a lot of buses do not accommodate for wheelchairs of my size. Even though my wheelchair is only like 2 or 3 centimetres larger than the standard size of wheelchair, which is really, really silly, to say the least. But in my report that I got, they specifically stated that I had, that they decided that I had no issue with mobility, even though I cannot walk more than 50 metres without having to take a break due to either my fatigue or my pain or both at the same time. And they also said that I showed great range of motion in my lower limbs. Now, if it was an in-person interview, I'd understand. This was a video call where I was sat down for the entirety.
My one was a phone interview. It was not even a video call, and they wrote, I made good eye contact. It was a phone interview. So I think they're also not autistic trained. I was told that some of them don't even get training on what autism is.
Yep.
And they just don't get training, in my opinion.
I don't think they get training for like 90% of things at this point. One of the questions that I got asked was in regards to my walking, and I was like, well, you know, I can walk maybe 2 houses away from my house, which means that I go up the back path from my house, and it's usually at that point that I stop because of the pain. And she turned around and she was just like, okay, so how often do you do this? And I was just like, well, I do it on most occasions when I go out of the house. And she goes, but you just said that you always use your wheelchair. And I was like, yes, when I'm going places. I'm sorry, I thought taking a walk was supposed to be good for your mental health. Isn't that what you people keep telling us to do? I'm just following advice. But then there's also the assessors that don't listen to the National Institute of Care and Excellence, also known as NICE. They ain't. But in terms of chronic pain, I suffer from an average of a 7 out of 10 chronic pain all the time. And unfortunately for me, it's neurological pain. We don't know the source of it, we don't know what's triggering it. And most of the time, medication does not work. And the one medication that did work, I started developing an addiction to it, so I stopped it because I didn't want to have to deal with yet another issue. And they took that as well, you're not on pain medication and therefore you're not in pain. When in reality, it's a case of painkillers apparently don't actually work for people with chronic pain. And everybody with chronic pain is different. Not everybody can use painkillers. Not everybody needs them. Some people rely on them heavily, and that's perfectly fine. Unfortunately for me, painkillers do not work. So that's why I'm not on them. But as of 2021, NICE released a guideline and report stating that painkillers should no longer be used for people with chronic pain. Personally, I believe that that's incorrect. That shouldn't be the case. It should be per person based, as always. But if we're going off the idea that chronic pain cannot be treated by painkillers, then why is the DWP trying to stop people from getting PIP who are in chronic pain because they're not on painkillers, when one of their institutes has literally said that painkillers don't work for chronic pain? This is the problem.
Like, they are just don't understanding. They try to find excuses for everything. They said for my dyspraxia is that I did not have an operation, therefore I do not have balance issues.
Wait, is there an operation for that? We'll be right back after this break.
Win £25,000 and help Truck Listens at the same time. Enter the Rainbow Lottery and click Truck Listens as your chosen organisation. And not only can you win £25,000, 50p of every ticket purchased will go to Truck Listens. Please see www.transradiouk.com and click Win £25,000 for more details.
Do you keep being told what to do by the intolerant left? How dare trans people call you cis when you're just normal? They keep calling you a TERF for wanting to see which genitals they have? Disgraceful. Men, have a trans activist told you that taking your gun into a women's restroom to protect women is wrong? It's okay. We know how damaging it can be to be told you're something you're not, to be forced to conform to societal norms, and to be told you're not allowed places where you don't belong. We're here for you. Apply to take part in our new training course, Not a Bigot, where we teach you to mind your own fucking business, stop obsessing about children, and stop making friends with literal neo-Nazis. Find out more at www.notabigot.com.
Are you looking for an intimate and affordable graphic design service? Are you an indie author needing help to publish your book? Theodora Rosenberg is here to help. With packages for marketing, publishing, and branding available, you're sure to be satisfied. Find out more at authortheorose.com.
Call 0800 009 6640 between 8am and 2am. Truck Listens, because everybody needs to talk sometime.
Did you know you can advertise with us for less than £1 a day? Call 0207 856 0584 or email sales@transradiouk.com.
Don't you just hate disabled people? Why are they given a huge changing room in clothes stores? Not very accessible for everyone else, is it? They're getting free money from the government? How dare they complain they're getting so little? How wasteful are they for buying pre-prepped food? Bananas have their own packaging, you know. It's okay. We know how damaging it can be for you to see other people get the chance to live their life in an accessible and comfortable way. How dare they get accommodated and supported? How dare they ruin food by getting it pre-prepped and wrapped in plastic? How dare they exist? Apply to take part in our new training course, Not a Bigot, where we teach you to mind your own fucking business, stop being an ableist fuck, and stop having extreme eugenic views. Get vaxxed. Learn more at www.notabigot.com.
Trans Radio UK. Tune in via DAB and Ireland. Download our app via your smart speaker or online at transradiouk.com.
Here's a quick reminder of what we talked about before the advert.
I did not have an operation, therefore I do not have balance issues.
Wait, is there an operation for that?
No, there isn't.
Right, okay, I just wanted to double check, because I have not been offered a operation for my dyspraxia. If that was a thing, I probably would have tried it by now. I have fallen down the stairs on so many occasions.
They try to find the most ridiculous excuses ever that that are not even valid excuses.
I feel like they're the type of people that would see an autistic person and go, well, why haven't you been in treatment for your autism? And we'd go, which treatment plan would you suggest? And they'd probably come up with something along the lines of conversion therapy.
I think they also said to me, by the way, we're only making it at the end 3 years because just in case there's a treatment of being autistic.
We're only going to give you 3 years just in case we cure your autism. And
then in 3 years they're probably gonna come up with 10 excuses.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're gonna probably come up with excuses along the lines of, well, have you tried the new treatments for autism? And it'll be like, let me just quickly have a look at all the torture methods you're suggesting. Pip.
And then they are also not very good in using preferred names.
They are not. They kept referring to me as she, and they even found my dead name on older documents and started using it in assessments and stuff, and honestly, it's... And they even wrote me down as Miss, even though I use Mix or Mister.
I also use Mix, and apparently they didn't have this as a title in the system.
Yeah, I had that excuse. I got them to change it. It took a while, though. It is beyond ridiculous. And I don't often get flabbergasted. I'm a very talkative person. It is one of my ADHD traits, but genuinely thinking about the lies that they regularly tell and the fact that nobody seems to be doing anything about this is kind of pathetic.
Yes, and I think also, I don't know if you knew, they are actually outsourced. So they do not work for the government, they work for Capita and another company, depends where you live. Usually the MR, sometimes it's outsourced, sometimes they work internally in the civil service.
Yeah.
I respect civil servants because they usually abide by a better standard than if they're outsourced. Yes, they still work for a very bad government.
Yeah.
But they are, the civil service can be very professional. They can be. The second person who reviewed me was quite good. When I've done some background research, she did not work for Capita. She worked for the civil service, and the people that I spoke to from the DWP, I only found them to be very good if they worked for the civil service. If they work for Capita or another outsourcing company, because they have more budget targets, they are very rude and they write not so good reports. This is what I found.
People at the DWP genuinely are some of the nicest civil servants that you'll ever talk to. As someone who's worked with civil servants, they're tainted for me, but I never had an issue working with DWP. I've never had an issue talking to someone who is specifically working at DWP. Apart from the assessors who don't get to actually talk to you at all and like to lie to your face. And then Capita. If your assessor isn't DWP, you are going to get rejected. It is that plain and that simple. They are trying to get more money out of it. That's it. And unfortunately, that was my experience. And this is why I don't trust our government, because they're allowing this to happen. And I'm going to be going to tribunal soon. I'm really not looking forward to it. But this is what I'm going to have to deal with. And it's stupid that we have to go through so many hoops to prove how disabled we are. And it's bad enough that I already deal with imposter syndrome, like thinking that I'm not disabled enough. I'm not disabled enough to use a cane. I'm not disabled enough to use a walking frame. I'm not disabled enough to be in a wheelchair. But they emphasise it so much more, and it is so much more apparent to me that to the outside world, I am not disabled enough. To the outside world, I am not disabled enough. And the only people that know I'm disabled enough are the people that know my issues. And going back to the Capita situation, I'm almost entirely certain that my assessor was most likely a Capita agent. And I'd like to point out that while I was describing my chronic pain, she was laughing. And I don't think they realise that a camera call is two ways. But the lack of dignity and decency when going through a very traumatic event, such as going through PIP, is horrifying, especially when the assessor is laughing at you. And I cried. I cried for hours after that situation. I had several panic attacks. I had several seizures, and I'm just kind of done with it. So I'm hoping that Citizens Advice are gonna do me a big help, because I can't do this anymore. I can't. All I'm asking for is basic assistance, and I can't even seem to get that. Let's discuss the coordination issues. You said that due to a combination of your autism and dyspraxia, you have coordination issues. So when you're walking, people make fun of you for it sometimes.
Yes. So I remember. The thing that I specifically hate is bikers walking in footpaths. Because when I cannot react that quickly. My reaction time is slower.
Yeah.
And when a person is biking, they expect people to have a good reaction time. A, they shouldn't be in the footpath.
No.
Especially when it's busy. B, when I react, they say, "You idiot! You should have gone the other side." And I said, "It's a footpath. I react slowly. I cannot know what direction you're going. I'm trying here. I made you way. You should have made way by stepping on the left, not on your." And I said, I just, and they just sweared and went off.
Yeah, I think one of the worst experiences I've had with bikers or just inconsiderate people in motorised vehicles and that kind of thing on footpaths. For example, obviously, it's technically not a motorised vehicle, it's a mobility scooter. There is one person who I regularly saw around the city that I used to work in, and I am in a motorised wheelchair. I use it regularly, and it goes up to a maximum of 4 miles per hour. I am pretty good at avoiding people. I have a horn, so I can get people to move when necessary. But generally I keep it pretty slow just so that, like, I can react quick enough, they can react quick enough, and nobody gets hurt. On this one occasion, there was this old woman on her mobility scooter going around the city as usual. I saw her every day. It wasn't uncommon. She was also very rude to most people. And she was stuck behind me, who was stuck behind a group of people who were walking in front of me. And her response to that was to ram her mobility scooter into me, which led me to fall out of my chair. And that in itself is probably, for most people, would probably be a traumatic experience, to be knocked out of your wheelchair by another disabled person who is just doing it for aggression. But I just kind of got up and started staggering, and she was just like, "Oh, you're one of those." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And she accused me of being drunk, and she accused me of being an alcoholic, which is why I was in the wheelchair. And I don't know about anyone else, but I've never met an alcoholic who has been prescribed a wheelchair for alcoholism. I don't think that's a valid treatment plan. I don't even think Pip would agree with that one. So that was a fantastic moment to start with. And I think eventually someone just kind of helped me back into my chair, and a dude was full on cussing out this woman. It was fantastic. And she avoided me for the rest of my time while I was working in that city. But before... Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that a few years ago, it's also I fall a lot, as I told you.
Yeah.
And a person told me, "Oh, did you fall on purpose?" And I said, "You see a bit of blood in my legs. Do you think that I fall on purpose?
Oh my.
My trousers are ripped. Do you think that I've done that on purpose?"
I had that conversation with my hospital. It was a Saturday night. We had a takeaway. I decided that I was going to eat my food upstairs, and I had to go past my mum's stair lift. And I had like a partial seizure on the go, so one of my legs was completely numb and not functioning as it probably should have been, and I lost my balance, and I effectively rugby tackled the stair lift. And that in itself was embarrassing, but I also spilt my milkshake and garlic sauce all over the carpet, and that was horrible, because I could not get that smell out for ages. But I finally got upstairs. I had the rest of the food that I had available to me. I then went to work the following day. I was doing a Sunday shift. And I called the nearby hospital, which is probably only a mile away from my work at that point. And I was just like, "Hi, can you advise me on the current wait time for x-rays and a checkup? Because I have got bruises that were very, very worrying bruises. I'd got a very large bruise on my shoulder, where my collarbone is specifically, and my 3 of my toes were not in the correct position, let's just put it that way. And there was a very, very large bruise and swelling on my knee. So they were just like, "Well, this is the wait time. However, we can see if we can book a specific appointment, see if we can get you in that way." And I was like, "Yeah, when would I be able to go?" And they were just like, "Now?" And I was just like, "I'm literally in work." I ended up going on my lunch break, and I had a load of scans done. And they were just like, "Do you want to wait around for the results to be checked on?" And I was just like, "I literally can't wait. I'm on the clock." So I went back to work. They called me, and I'd broken my collarbone, 7 places in my left foot, and I'd chipped my kneecap. And the joke that I got from my manager at the time, because when I came in the following day, I had a sling, and I was also wearing a cast boot, though, if I'm being honest, I took it off like 3 days later because it was annoying and my toes were back in the correct position, so meh. But I went in and they were just like, oh, what have you done now? And just the tone of voice, I don't usually pick up on tones, but that tone of voice is like, really? Are you doing this to me right now? And I explained it to them and they went, well, why did you do that? And I went, what do you mean? And they go, well, why did you rugby tackle the stairlift? And I went, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't wake up on Saturday morning and went, you know what? Today I have decided that I'm going to break my collarbone.
I think a lot of so I think a lot of people think that you control what you do.
I suppose some of us do, but not us. I just want to add, when I say that some people do, like, control their balance, I think it's important to understand that not everybody has to focus to do what is considered a basic task. For example, neurodivergent people are known for having to focus to do things along the lines of breathing, blinking, and coordinate themselves. And that's walking, talking, doing anything. They, even if it is a subconscious level, they still have to kind of balance themselves in order to keep everything working correctly. And most people don't realise this. And when you're dyspraxic, it's like you can focus on it as much as you can, but even though your focus is on it, it's still not going to happen, because that's just the type of condition it is. And that's an issue. And it is so often that I am labelled as clumsy or told that I just need to be more careful, when in reality my body doesn't understand what balance is. I have no coordination. Sadly, it has progressively gotten worse over the past 20 years. I was apparently very coordinated as a toddler. That went downhill rapidly along with my ambidextrousness, because now I can't write with either hand. So it's just important to consider that if you have the ability to live in this able world, take that as a privilege, and you need to understand that it is a privilege. Not a privilege of something that you can enjoy, but something that most people take for granted, because being able to live in this world without having struggles, not knowing how you're going to get to work because the bus has changed, the bus company has changed the size of the wheelchair bay, or not knowing how you're going to be able to attend a doctor's appointment because they no longer offer transport, the buses don't run across that road, and it basically makes it impossible for you to get there. There's so many ways that this world is impractical and inconsiderate towards disabled people, whether that's people who are physically disabled, mentally disabled, it doesn't matter. It is not a world built for disabled people, and accessibility can be as simple as organising doctor's appointments over the phone for something that doesn't need to be seen in person. It can be accommodating for employees to arrive either a little earlier or a little later, just so that they can get certain buses to get there on time, just so that they know that they're able to get there. Accommodating for autistic people to potentially have to have time off due to autistic burnout, because we mask for so long, our valves go up, the pressure goes up, and eventually we will get irritable, and a sensory overload may end up happening. Another thing, we should probably stop calling them autistic meltdowns, because everybody can have a meltdown. Meltdowns aren't just autistic. They're not an autistic trait. It is a human trait. Everybody at some point gets extremely irritated. Everybody at some point gets extremely upset. And everybody at some point can have a bit of a flip out. It's not an autistic trait. Let's stop calling them meltdowns, because the idea that only autistic people has meltdowns causes so much stigma around autistic people and ADHD people about whether or not we are irritable, about whether or not we are safe to be around, about whether or not we can take care of children, do safety jobs, do jobs in public sectors. And this is just, it's putting so much stigma into the world, and honestly, it's getting kind of annoying, especially considering how many employers are currently listening to the stigmas that autistic people and neurodivergent people keep having these weird meltdowns, and they have to have extra time off work, and they do this and they do that, and it's led to 80% of people who are autistic and ADHD and neurodivergent people in general to be unemployed. I am part of that figure. I have never been unemployed. Since leaving school, I have always been in work. I recently lost my job due to being worse, and I wasn't allowed to go back, and they let me go for that. I could have continued working. I could have. I was willing to. But they're the ones that stopped me, because they gave in to the stigma that is around neurodivergent people and disabled people in general, that we are a liability and we're a health and safety hazard. I lost my job because health and safety and HR listened to the ableist stigma that is so rampant in business and corporations. I worked in IT. Do you understand how many neurodivergent people work in IT? It is abundant. But as soon as an autistic person shows that they're autistic, as soon as a disabled person has needs, they are no longer welcome at that company. That's the difference between a company that is autistic friendly and a company that boasts about being autistic friendly. Because the ones that boast are never autistic friendly. Because as soon as you have an issue, as soon as you need some help or need a little bit of downtime, you're out. And I just need people to understand that. So next time you're talking to someone about autism, consider saying they had a sensory overload rather than a meltdown. Consider asking your friends who are neurodivergent how they are in terms of their levels, because trust me, they'll know. And if you have a spoony friend a disabled friend, someone with chronic pain, chronic illness in general. Ask them how many spoons they have. Ask them what activities they need help doing, or what activities they want to do with their leftover spoons for the day. I know spoons doesn't make sense to everyone, but ask. And if they don't know what spoons is, get them to have a look online, because honestly, spoon theory is the best theory. That's it for this week. Deep breath. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you again, or you will hear me again, next week, next Wednesday. Have a good one.